The NFL season is ready to kick off as the Chiefs try to defend their Super Bowl title. Hey everyone, welcome to NFL This Week. Rob Wong, joined alongside by Postmedia's Paul Chapman. And Paul, after months without NFL football that mattered, it's finally go time with Week 1 getting started on Thursday with the Baltimore Ravens taking on the defending Super Bowl champion Kansas City Chiefs. And I think if you look around the different power rankings for Week 1, the Chiefs are near the top as far as the team they defeated for the Lombardi Trophy last season in San Francisco. They're also up near the top. But the Chiefs, what do you think about them heading into this season? Are they still the cream of the crop?
I think you have to say they are, Rob, until they get knocked off. This time last year, if you remember, salary cap issues, 2 years ago, they lost Tyreek Hill because they couldn't afford him. Salary cap issues, people predicting maybe not, they're not as hungry, and they lose to Detroit, everyone's darling, as a young up and coming team. And they didn't have home advantage, and everyone thought last year was the year the Chiefs were going to die, and they didn't. And they found a way to get probably their most important player other than Patrick Mahomes under contract and happy, and Chris Jones. Now Aaron Donald's retired, probably the most dominant defensive tackle in the league. So I think as much as you may see a preponderance of orange behind me, lifelong Bengals fan. So as much as it grinds my gears to say the Chiefs, I think it has to be them. The one thing that I do wonder about, though, is they got a really tough schedule to start the season. As you mentioned, they open at Baltimore, and then they have the Bengals the following week. So, they're both at home is the saving grace for them, but I don't see how you can look at anyone else as the favorite with what you've seen Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and the gang do there in Kansas City.
Yeah, they're going to put up points all season long, no matter who's on that field, as long as Patrick Mahomes is running the show. You talked about the Detroit Lions, and they are that up-and-coming team that everyone is expecting to take the next step. It was Buffalo for a while, but Dan Campbell's squad came up just shy of the Super Bowl last year. Are you buying the hype heading into this year?
1,000%. 1,000%. Like, I look at that Detroit Lions team, and now that they've got some experience under their belt, now that they're not just these surprise newcomers anymore, they've got a little bit more belief. And you look at what they've done. They bolstered their offensive line, probably one of the top 3 or 4 offensive lines in the NFL. Amazing wide receivers and the best young tight end in the business. And they've got 2 great options at running back. And then you look on defense, they've got game changers. Aiden Hutchinson, certainly, number 1 or number 2 overall pick. So I am buying the hype. They're in a bit of a tough division because I think Chicago are going to fulfill that promise. A lot depends on the rookie quarterback. And we saw what Green Bay did in the playoffs last year with Jordan Love. So there's a lot of competition in that division, but I just look at that Lions defense and, maybe the cornerbacks are a little bit of a weak spot, but overall, that team's stacked top to bottom. And even if you look at other teams, I want to get to the Bengals a little bit later, but they didn't collapse without Joe Burrow, but certainly was a big drop off to Jake Browning. Hendon Hooker was a predicted top 5 pick at Tennessee before he blew his knee out, and he's been quietly sitting there behind Jared Goff. So if anything happens to Jared Goff and you need someone to step in, they actually have a guy that not a lot of people know a lot about. So yeah, I absolutely believe the Detroit Lions hype. That's why I do have one of their vintage pennants up behind me.
Yeah, they're going to be a lot of fun to watch this season. Lastly, is there a team that you're looking at heading into the season that you don't think is getting enough love from national media?
Well, I will start with the Cincinnati Bengals only because I was watching Good Morning Football, one of the flagship show on the NFL network, and of their 4 hosts, 3 of them picked the Bengals to miss the playoffs. I've seen rankings of the top 15 NHL head coach or NFL head coaches. Zach Taylor's never mentioned in that. Joe Burrow was, I think, in the 20s in the ranking of the top 100 players. They're really under people's radar. So, when Burrow was healthy, they were within 3 points of going to back-to-back Super Bowls. He's the only quarterback other than Tom Brady to beat Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. As long as they get the Jamar Chase contract sorted out, which I believe they will, and he is under contract for the next 2 years, so he may want to play hardball, but he'll be back. They also have, Rob, the 5th easiest schedule, which brings me to my real surprise. And a lot of people are picking this team, but the Atlanta Falcons. They've brought in a new head coach who's changed the philosophy there. Obviously, what they did in the draft was kind of weird, signing Kirk Cousins to this massive free agent contract, but then also drafting Michael Penix out of Washington. So again, they're well set there. They got amazing skill players. Bijan Robinson in his second year. You look at their receivers, starting with Drake London. They've got a lot of talent there. Plus, will Kyle Pitts ever fulfill his potential? And then on defense, Jesse Bates, safety, all pro last year, probably the best free agent signing of any team last year. And then you look at them bringing in a guy like Matthew Judon. They've done well in free agency. They've made trades. They got a lot of pieces there, and it is a weak division. Let's be honest. So they're going to get a chance to build on things there. It's almost like a free pass into the playoffs. Although maybe Baker Mayfield and the Bucks have something to say about that. I think the Saints and Panthers will be dreadful again. And then there are some other teams where look at this time last year you had Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, and look at the difference between those two in those years. So we have a lot of young quarterbacks, again, dominating the draft last year. So there could be another surprise team out there. A lot of people are saying the Colts, Anthony Richardson was injured last year. They've got a lot of talent across the board as well. But I think Atlanta are probably the biggest surprise for me in the NFC. And, I'm going to stick with the Bengals just because no one else is picking them.
Yeah, I like the Falcons pick. A lot of young, exciting players there, and you can't count out the Bengals with all the talent that they have.
Well, and I said Bengals fifth easiest strength of schedule. The Falcons actually have the easiest schedule in the NFL based on their opponents from last year. So that can be an awful advantage when you're headed towards a solid position and seeding in the playoffs.
All right, we'll see how things shake out here with week number 1. As always, leave your thoughts in the comments section below. For Paul Chapman, I'm Rob Wong. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you next week.